So, sorry, to those of you online, what I had just been doing was presenting the apologies and welcoming people, including those who are new to the staff of Western Gateway and new to this meeting, particularly our colleagues from WECA, for which we're really grateful to have you here, and Kevin Guy from WECA. Thank you all very much. Can I ask, there's sufficient number of new faces here today that if you can remember the first time you speak, can you just say who you are and where you're from? Because some people have tags on them that say that and most of us don't. Moving to item 2, though, on the agenda, Alan, this is over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alan Creedy. I'm the lead officer here for Western Gateway STB, and it's my occasional role to sort out chairing arrangements for the board. That comes around when simply the constitution requirement means that term expires, or the circumstances of the current incumbent, the chair's circumstances change as well. In this case, both has happened. So we had Amanda Rigby, who chaired this group for a year or so. Amanda has now shifted her role and moved into a different area of business at Bath and North East Somerset Council, which means that she would no longer be eligible for this chair anyway. But as that turns out, so her term would have expired around about now anyway. So it falls to me to try to establish a new chair for this group. I'm going to ask to start with whether there are any nominations for chair.
Can I nominate Councillor Chris Wilmore, please, if Chris is prepared to continue?
Thank you. Are there any seconders for that?
Councillor John Andrews in Dorset. I happily second Chris Wilmore for the post of chair.
Thank you very much. All in favour? That looks fairly unanimous to me. So I'm going to declare Councillor Chris Wilmore as the new chair of the Western Gateway subnational transport body. Chris, I don't mind if you do this or I do it, but we need to elect a vice chair at the same time. Do you want to carry on with that, or do you want me to do that?
You finished this item off. You're doing great.
So we've elected our chair. We now need to elect a vice chair. So are there any nominations for vice chair, please?
I'm sorry, I neglected to say Councillor Hannah Young from North Somerset. I'd like to nominate Councillor Ed Plowden, please, if Ed is prepared to do so.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder?
Have a second one. Oh, Martin, seconder.
Yeah, Councillor Martin Smith from Wiltshire Council. I'm very happy to second Ed.
Thank you very much, Martin. So all those in favour? Yeah, I can't see any abstentions. So we now have Chris Wilmore as chair of our STB and Councillor Ed Plowden as our vice chair. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll pass the agenda back to Chris for the rest of today's business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you for joining us today despite being unwell. Appreciate it. Item 3 on the agenda are the minutes and the actions from the previous meeting. Are there any issues people want to raise? I think you had something you didn't want to raise. Or if that might be corrected.
Oh, yeah, there were some corrections to make to the minutes of the last meeting, and that's been done.
These were just in terms of the nuance of 1 or 2 conversations that happened in the meeting and people wanted the nuance slightly altered. Is there anything else coming from the previous meeting? Fine, thank you very much indeed. In which case it takes us straight into public participation. And we've had written questions, and I think everybody on the board has seen the questions and the written responses. But we've got one of our question askers here initially. Do you want to ask a supplementary?
Yeah, I do. So really, it's about progress because I've seen the answers to both the rail and bus questions. But we do need a clear plan of money from the Department for Transport. I think the Southwest gets well overlooked, if I'm honest with you, and it's around Gateway. To see where the department is, I'm particularly going to raise today is one of my questions is about bus services and the bus services bill, which is now going through the Lords. But I'm not sure it's really funding effectively the rural buses. I believe we might have an officer in place from this authority to deal with buses, but we're seeing bus cutbacks in Dorset between Axminster and Peninsula and through to Bridport and Weymouth. We've only just filled a gap in Gloucestershire to cross the border between Yates and thank you, Chris, and Wootton under Edge and Roger. But you know, this was talked about yesterday. I was at a bus summit in Leeds with the Department for Transport and Federation of Bus Transport, and rural services and rural funding, both for express coaches and for buses, are not good enough, simply not good enough for this region. The department needs to look clearly at that. And I just want to know again, can we write to the department? And on the railways, how they can expect not to finish Dawlish Sea War, so we can't connect Plymouth to Bristol safely. Well, that was about defence all around, with Plymouth being a nuclear port and Bristol being full of defence, along with Cheltenham, defence and spy bases. That railway line is important to the economy of our region. And yet we don't seem to have the money in the settlements for this region, even for Parsons Tunnel. And I mean, I'll say this now, and I'm a great supporter of Helen Goodwin, as you all know, and Kevin Guy and everybody else, but Weka is not the Southwest. The Southwest is this area. It's Dorset, it's Bournemouth and Christchurch, it's Wiltshire, it's Gloucestershire, as I keep telling him in Gloucestershire, as it's Bournemouth and Christchurch, it's Swindon, although they're not a member of either, and it's Devon and Cornwall. And you know, the Southwest matters to the economy of this country. And you know, there hasn't been the money, Chris. And again, only yesterday I was given indications that we might be getting a few more trains. And I'd like to hear DFT Rail explain this. We have 8 trains, Chris, 8 trains, which on cross-country trains are Reba. I sit on their advisory board. And yet we've got 8 trains sitting in a depot. And every weekend through this summer going to Bournemouth, people are standing. People are standing to Penzance, standing to Weston-super-Mare, standing to Bristol. Helen Goodwin sent me a message saying this is just totally unacceptable, Mayor of West England. So I don't know the department why they're not, the rolling stock that's sitting now off lease is simply not brought back into service, or is this about saving money for the Chancellor of the Exchequer? Because this is a ridiculous situation. We need those trains. Not every train goes to London, but the trains that bring people to the economy of this region come from Penzance and Bournemouth, and they go north through Birmingham to Scotland and Manchester. And we need to make sure there's investment in that route. Staff, resources, and I would suggest that that is a department's top priority. So those are my points. The only other point I want to look at, we need to understand where we are with access for all. Stations I've listed, Dorchester and Cheltenham, etc. But the one issue I did want to say, done some test work recently, which some of you have seen, and I was disappointed to say some of the new coaches, James, that are coming out from Flixbus are not having wheelchair accessibility. So I want some tests done on those for the coach forum, done to test those coaches to make sure they're fully accessible in all our coach stations. And finally, Chris, can we remind Kim McGuinness to please make sure she repairs the coach station in Newcastle where our coaches end up from the West Country. She's the mayor of the North East.
Thank you. I should have explained to those who are new that this is David Redwell. If you've met him before by any chance, this is David Redwell. The proposal, I can come on to a second. The proposal was in relation to David's questions that we write to the rail minister and about rail services. And that we raise the bus issues, the coach issues in the impending coach forum. Would people like us to also write to the relevant minister about bus services in rural areas?
Stephen, like, would it?
Bus services in rural areas. And Ben, if you're on the call already, this is advance notice of some of the questions we might ask you later.
Yes, I fully support. Sorry. Yes, I fully support us writing. That's really helpful. And I think to build off a bit of a list there, David, of the access for all, absolutely critical. And I don't think it's been given enough priority. And within my own area, Nailsing Backwell Station has been on the list for a very, very, very long time, with people having to travel distances way beyond their journeys in order to turn around and come back again because of the issues on that platform. So I think, you know that won't be the only place, but hopefully we can get a comprehensive list of those stations that we really do need to address.
On the access question, I'm going to pass that around. If some of you haven't seen it, I went to the launch of it, and it's a really good agenda for mobility. Sustrans, Transport for All and Motability Foundation. Pass it round if anybody wants to take the details.
I should have
Get it
said, by the
online.
way, I sit on most of your bus advisory board panels.
David.
That's all I said. That's all I should say, but I didn't use my teeth.
Don't push your
No,
luck.
no, I'm not going to. Myself.
Sorry, John Andrews and Dorset. I totally agree with everything he said. But also, I'd like to raise the point to DAT and especially with the rural buses, that we in Dorset Council are a very rural council and a very rural authority. And the BSIP money that we got this year was 2/3 capital and 1/3 revenue, which is no good to us in rural Dorset at all. We depend on subsidising buses. So we asked the DFT if we could actually swap some of that money out, and they said no, which is ridiculous, because we are in desperate need to fund rural buses in Dorset. So I would plead on that letter as well that the way they do the funding, they need to contact the ruralities and ask them.
Fine, okay. So he'll work with your drafting the letter.
I'm very supportive of writing about rural buses. We've had some recent workshops at the West of England Combined Authority. Chris and Hannah and Ed have participated as well. And I think, I think what we're hearing is that there's a potential cliff edge coming in terms of funding and in terms of contracts, and it's a really big worry for all of our rural residents.
Thank you. Christina.
Thank you. So I'm Christina Biggs. I'm representing Bristol Rail Campaign today. It's actually the new name of Friends of Suburban Bristol Railways, if people remember that. So yeah, so I'll talk about today is Portishead. I'm hoping you'll
3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm hoping you've noticed Portishead. That's great. We're going to organise a shovel in the ground party. Come along to that. Wesley Junction. Obviously, you've already commissioned a report with Network Rail. Just want to say that's a absolute key bottleneck now going for north, and I would recommend you talk to Midlands about it, because they should be equally keen. We put a whole thing in the JLCB4 consultation. I can copy that over to you if you need extra persuading. For that, I would suggest that we do a site visit quite soon to Wesley Junction with the relevant councillors. Now, my climate resilience plan, I've put this thing into the consultation that you just did on your strategic transport plan. So I wrote it up over a weekend, but it's been long in the make for me. So I feel that if we're going to plan for climate resilience, this is the right place. Okay, so here we've got the farms, we've got the factories, we've got the cities that need feeding. Sweden have done a wonderful total defence plan where they take a city and they go outside and think, okay, where are the farms are going to feed the city? And you overbuild. And all the things were in that report I've just sent in. I wrote it myself. Yeah. And then tram trains, I just say that we're advocating tram trains as in Cardiff for Bristol. And you might want tram trains elsewhere where you don't want the heavy rail because that might be too expensive. Rail bus interchange is something we're very keen on. So I think as part of the rural bus thing, if you make sure that every single suburban railway station and country railway station has a bus service, you're going to really unpack some of this problem. Okay, so make sure that buses stop at local trains, not, and try and synchronise the buses to the trains.
Yeah.
And then finally, Lawrence Hill, so in terms of access for all, Lawrence Hill is going to get one lift. We are meeting with them to persuade them to put 2 lifts in, because you still have to go around the little part, but 1 lift is a heck of a lot better than no lifts. But yes, so that is happening at Wecker. You might want to talk to them about other accessibility, such as Nelson Backwell. I don't know what they've got on their list. We're going to meet with them, officers, and then we're going to Wecker in October. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Thank you very much. I can reassure you about Westerly Junction.
Yeah.
My first question I asked when I came on this body to Matt Haywood was exactly Westerly Junction.
Great.
So
Perfect, yeah.
but it's on this group's agenda very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, we find that site visits are very useful. Raising awareness.
Are there any other responses?
Roses online in the future.
Yeah, any responses to Christina's comments? If not, Rosa, you've got 1 supplementary and you've got 3 minutes. Rosa's online. Rosie, do you want to ask a supplementary?
She's in that list. See that?
She's top left.
Sorry.
Walls past.
That's
Okay, what I'll do, we'll move on, and Rosa, if you appear later, we can pop you into the agenda later. She's here now. Hello, Rosa. One supplementary, 3 minutes.
I apologise, Chair. I'm not feeling too well. Can I ask the question be read for me?
Oh, no, your original question we've read and the answer has been your question's been circulated and the answer's been circulated. It's whether you want to do any follow-up.
No, I don't.
Whether you want to ask David to follow up for you.
Yes, please. That I would like. Thank you, David, if you've read it.
So as I said before,
We work
I'm
together
on
quite well.
most of the bus advisory boards in this region. So really, it's about cross-border buses. Rosa's question is about maintaining a very strong link, particularly between Peninsula and Somerset, into Wecker and into Bristol, and from Somerset into Wiltshire, so that it doesn't fall down. I hope we've got an officer here who's now going to start to coordinate these bus services with Peninsula. And the other thing is Peninsula is also, and this is what Rosa wasn't too well. We were talking about a card, and there's some sort of card that they're producing for Peninsula, a travel card for buses, trains, and coaches. I don't know where we are with that, but we've made it clear that Somerset doesn't stop on the Mendip Hills, and that actually those cards need to be valid, so they come into Dorset and they come into Somerset, Chris, Bristol, Bath particularly, but particularly as far as Weymouth and Dorchester. For example, it's no good them finishing at Axminster. Well, what's Axminster? So can we please get the 2 transport boards to coordinate their work with the department on this integrated ticket for buses, trains and coach services across the southwest?
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
can we take that and leave it with Hannah for North Somerset and her officers, and Phil and Kevin from Wecker and James from Western Gateway? Is there anything else we need to do from that one
I think
today?
there's a Dorset involved in that, Chris, as well.
Yes,
Please.
yes, I was thinking about the Somerset ones, North.
Yeah.
I do apologise. And indeed Wiltshire for that matter. Right, thank you very much indeed, and thank you all for coming. You are welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go about your lawful business. But when we get too bored, don't feel boring.
Yeah,
Just
we say.
go.
We'll stay.
That takes us to item 5, which is paper A on the agenda, which is a long-awaited progress report on Dorset Metro and the West of England line. James.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm James White. I'm technical lead for the Western Gateway STB. Yes, it's good to know that we now have the final version of the strategic outline business case for the Dorset Metro proposal and for the West of England line Tisbury Loop scheme as well. I'll deal with them both in turn. Taking Dorset Metro first, this is a long-standing proposal to have an extra train an hour along the south coast between Wareham and Brockenhurst, serving all stations in between. It came out of the Dorset Strategic Connectivity Study of a couple of years ago initially, and with joint funding from Western Gateway, but also Dorset Council as well, Netherwell have undertaken producing a strategic outline business case for the proposal. They did look at quite a range of options, 6 options, which came back with various costs, ranging from 37 million up to 66 million. But the important point to bear in mind about those costs is there are considerable savings to make if you bring in the new infrastructure alongside existing renewals. But higher cost is as a standalone proposal. There are lots of benefits from the Dorset Metro, generating a lot of new passengers and creating greater connectivity. But because there are potential disbenefits to longer distance travellers, the benefit cost ratio came out surprisingly low. And I think this was a surprise to us as officers, but also to Network Rail as well. I should have had, we do have Jamie Rockwell on call today, who'll be much better at answering any very technical questions than I would, and Jamie's smiling at the bottom of the screen. So even though that benefit cost ratio was not as strong as we would have liked, I think it's important to see this work and also the West of England line work, which I'll come to in a moment, as very much a starting point. This is an interim position. As officers from the local authorities and the STB and Network Rail, we recognise there are considerable benefits from the Dorset Metro proposal, but we need to look at it in a wider context. So the proposal in the report is to undertake a more multimodal corridor approach to the whole of the Dorset Metro, bringing in all the schemes that are going on in and around the Dorset and Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole area. And that's things like the bus service improvement plan measures, linking in with the local plan and local transport plan, the Heart of Wessex line proposals, the Western Gateway strategic cycling links, plus local cycling and walking schemes, to set the railway and Dorset Metro in that wider context to try and build up a much stronger business case. This will be a bit of a departure from traditional business case developments, but especially bearing in mind what's happening with the local authorities and the need to meet the revised housing forecasts, we need to capture that as well. But the methodology used to do with Dorset Metro, it couldn't anticipate where those new houses were going to go, where those new jobs were going to go, and how many there were going to be. But now we're moving forward, we're in a stronger position to build that into the business case. So it is proposed to do most of this work in-house using Western Gateway officers and the local authority officers, but asking the board for approval for a budget of up to £50,000 to bring in technical support as and when required. 50,000 can be met from existing budgets. The West of England line, the Tisby Loop, is very similar in this context as well. Just a reminder about the scheme for the West of England line. This came out of the West of England line strategic continuous modular strategy, I think it was, a few years ago, which was looking at or recommended half-hourly services between Salisbury and Yeovil. It's currently, well, I say currently, but there are issues here, an hourly service. But it is largely single track. And as a result of being single track, there are major performance and reliability issues. In fact, it's one of the worst performing lines in the country for reliability. So this piece of work has been looking at various options to enable a half-hourly service and to improve the performance and reliability of the routes. It looks at 3 main options, and the best of those 3 options is actually to focus on an extended loop at Tisbury station to enable trains to pass. The case for a half-hourly service at the moment is not particularly strong, so the focus is going to be on that loop to enable better performance and reliability. The BCR again came out surprisingly low here, but because of the sort of rather high-level nature of the business case, it didn't fully capture all the performance benefits there would be from having an extended loop. So Network Rail are going to be doing more work. Actually, they started doing more work in the background, looking at capturing those performance benefits, and the benefit cost ratio is starting to edge upwards. It's also key to this is linking in, piggybacking as it were, on the resignaling works of the plan for Salisbury. Goes back to my earlier point with Dorset Metro. There are considerable savings to make if it takes place as part of a wider scheme. So the costs for the Tisbury Loop, for example, drop down to about 31 million if it's done in conjunction with the Salisbury resignaling, whereas up to 80 plus million if it's a standalone scheme. So the recommendations for the West of England line are to support Network Rail going forward with developing the performance benefits from the scheme. But for the local authorities and for the STB, it's really just to support Network Rail, but to step back from doing any further work at this stage. Network Rail do think there's a very strong case for doing Tisbury Loop, so we do want to be there to support them, but we're not going to commission any additional work at this stage. I'm happy to answer any questions. Chris and Jamie will be able to contribute as well.
Right. Questions and comments? John?
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, for both schemes, really, I think there's a need for the Dorset Metro. It's something that's been talked about for a long time, and I will say it to you all. It's about time we stop talking and acting, because we've been going at both of these schemes for a long time. We treat cattle better than we treat passengers on the West of England line between Yeovil and Salisbury. I've been on those trains because I've had to go to London once or twice, and I had to catch the early one. It's just ridiculous the amount of people that are on that. School children getting on the trains, crammed in. It's just unhealthy, and it's not right. We shouldn't be treating customers like that. So I plead with everybody involved in these two schemes, certainly the West of England one, because I'm passionate about that, to get on board with these schemes and make them work if you can. Okay, thanks, Chris.
On behalf of Andy Hadley, who can't be here, who's almost Christchurch, he would very much echo that, and is enthusiastic about the work that's going to be done around improving the business cost ratios on them. He wanted to add to the congestion point, though, that there is an issue to be addressed in the interim around pricing. And some of the long distance routes from that South Coast area seem to be much higher priced than from other places, not from Salisbury or from Bristol or whatever. So there is a question mark there about whether we're getting some issues right about getting people on rail to start with. And he's particularly concerned about the Brockenhurst to Wareham section, which makes sense to you.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Fine. Well, it kind of does. Are there any other comments? I don't know if Martin, you want to say anything about the Wessex bit, the Wiltshire bit?
The loop.
It is really, well, obviously, I'm very keen that to happen if it's going to ease congestion. And I think a lot of this about resilience and about reliability. So it's one of the key things with public transport. If it's not reliable, nobody's going to use it. So I think reliability is so critical. So yeah, I mean, I've got, as you know, I had some queries about the benefits to against the costs, but I think that's been explained to me that the methodology there is probably not quite up to scratch these days. So I'm happy to be advised by others. Be happy to support both schemes.
Thank you very much. So is the board happy to support the next steps on both schemes? I think with a strong degree of enthusiasm, because we're all really rather keen on rail.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. And thank you, James. And thank you, Jamie. We haven't asked you any questions, but thank you. That takes us on to paper 6, which is the MRM process and the position for our authorities within that process. James, are you going to introduce it briefly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members will hopefully be aware that the Secretary of State wrote to all local authorities who had major road network or large local major schemes, setting out proposals to review the list of schemes. There's quite a long list, 70 schemes in total nationally, which were put in for funding back in 2019. 3 of those schemes are going to continue, which is very good news. The A350 Chippenham bypass actually being built at the moment. Anyone who came down the A350 this morning will know that. A38, which is a joint North Somerset and Somerset Council scheme, and then the M4 Junction 17 improvements on the M4. But amongst 42 schemes nationally, there are also 3 schemes in our region which the Department for Transport are going to be reviewing, and they are Junction 9 on the M5, which is the Gloucestershire County Council scheme, roundabout improvements on the A4174, which is South Gloucestershire one, and the A350 Melksham bypass, which is a Wiltshire Council scheme. So the report is just setting out a proposal to send a draft letter to the Secretary of State expressing continued support for all three schemes that are in the Western Gateway area. I think I'll pause there, Chair, and pass over to the local authorities.
Martin, Wiltshire.
Yes.
Can you say who you are, just for benefit?
So, Martin Smith, Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport at Wiltshire Council. So, yeah, obviously with the recent designation of the A350 as the sort of M4 South Coast, then North-South route, this Melksham bypass takes on even more importance than it did have in the past. Obviously, Melksham and surrounding areas there is an absolute massive bottleneck at the moment for traffic that goes north-south through that part of Wiltshire, and this designation will only serve to make that worse. And obviously, we have got the go ahead to improve junction 17 on the M4. This is almost like sort of opening the mouth of the funnel, but the exit from the funnel is just as tight as it was before. So, you know, obviously we're quite concerned that sort of this scheme isn't also in the approved list. So I really very much advocate for that Melksham bypass to happen and get the funding it needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger, can you remember to say who you are?
Yeah, Roger Wyborn, Cabinet Lead for Road Safety and Sustainable Transport of Gloucestershire. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the Junction 9. It's potentially a very big scheme in terms of being something that unlocks a great deal of housing. So we're looking at 15,000 homes in the longer term, and that's on top of 10,000 around the new homes around the Tewkesbury Garden communities. That's 25,000 homes, and also there's 100 acres of employment land as well. So all that on Junction 9. So it's a very important scheme to us.
I'm going to, as Chris Wilmot, I'm South Gloucester, with my South Gloucestershire hat on, I'm going to just say a few words about the third scheme in this, 4174, which isn't as big a scheme as that in many ways, but it's absolutely the eye of the storm in terms of the Western Innovation Arc, which is a key driver in the Wecker Economic Growth Plan, because it's the road that links the whole of that arc, and it's got some pinch points that are really particularly tricky, and in particular, particularly tricky for modal shift. So people are wanting to make different modal transport choices, are getting caught up in the eye of a storm of vehicular congestion and highway safety. It's in an area where there's thousands of houses immediately feeding into it in the local plan, as well as the economic growth strategy. So although it's a smaller scale in some ways as a project, it like both of your projects, it's absolutely eye of the storm where congestion hits. Are we all comfortable with the proposal in the paper that we write supporting those three?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you very much indeed. That takes on to paper 7, paper C, which is the Railflake feasibility study. Morag, are you there online? Morag? Or have we got there too soon for you?
To be there, Chair.
Well, if you pursue that.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to item 8 while you sort that out. Hannah, this is your paper on the Regional Centre of Excellence.
Suddenly now,
Sorry about that, no warning.
Yes, so this is summarising the work on the regional centre of excellence for 6 months or so. We separated this out from the general programme update, mostly because there's been a lot of time and effort gone into this particular work stream, and a number of outputs sort of a bit confusing in the main report. So it's just summarising those things that have come in, just launching. So, thinking back to the March board beginning of this year, the board asked us to look into what we could do local authorities delivery of new housing growth, following the publication of the uplift numbers, and particularly to support with aligning the land use planning and the transport planning, so that that housing can be delivered in a way that resulted in minimal trip generation onto the network, particularly where that capacity is already constrained. So this paper presents work streams we've been doing in support of that. It's all come about with of both land use and transport planning officers at all of the partner authorities. They've been convened into a working group that's met. Tomorrow will be our 5th time, so that they've overseen development of some tools. So the sort of biggest amongst those are 2 spatial and transport planning integration tools, one of which operates at a strategic level scale, so it provides an indicative guide for locations for developments of 1,000 homes and above. So that's looking at those sites where you would expect some of the kind of local facilities to be provided as part of that development. So it's looking at strategic connectivity to services and destinations that are big, slightly larger scale. And the second one, I think WSP allows you to drill right down to a 400 by 400 metre hex level in urban areas, or 800 by 800 in rural areas, and kind of analyse the connectivity and accessibility of those zones. You can build up a picture of what your likely trip generation is going to be if you locate housing in those particular areas. And you can play with different scenarios constraining that trip generation by different sort of forecast scenarios, really. So that allows to support the development of local plans or the allocation of new homes, and also that one also works at a development management level as well. So when you get an application for a site within one of those hexes, provides a sort of quick and easy way of determining where there's already existing sustainable connectivity to key services, or where that needs to be provided or enhanced as part of a Section 106 agreement or other planning limits there. So those tools will be launched during this month. I'm going to launch them tomorrow for one of them. It also aligns with the recently published quantified carbon guidance, waited for a long time to the LT. So the outputs from that tool, the methodology of that tool, align with the kind of recommended methodologies and PCG. It also covered briefly in this paper sort of 2 other areas. So we developed a health and social value valuation tool to supplement business cases. So that's taking it away from just being BCR orientated, as discussed at the top of this meeting. And also we just need the credit for this, but has built a section of our website where we will host the FT's core guidance and tools. So those will be updated twice a year. So it will be a kind of centralised repository for all the current guidance there. So yeah, a lot of different and quite interesting work streams through Regional Centre of Excellence, and particularly with the spatial planning tool, the WSP one, it's garnering a lot of interest from wider parties now, other local authorities, other STBs,
housing lens and so on, and also seeking to kind of buy into this tool and provide a sort of unified approach to assessing the land use and the transport connectivity of an area.
Can we first of all just say thank you, because it's really, this is the beginnings of the piece of work that we were wanting to understand about joining the big growth those are in the region, so thank you. I do have a couple of questions. I have one from Andy in his absence, and he was worried about the geographies on in the combined composite mapping tool and the areas that weren't included. And I kind of have a supplementary to that is you excluded the green belt. The reality is that lots of people are looking at green belt of necessity because actually it potentially is more sustainable in transport terms than locating new development in the middle of the countryside. So could you just talk us through?
I can. I think
What caveats need to come with this? Because otherwise I can see this getting misused as well as used.
this is a victim of trying to use a single image to describe what is a composite multi-layered map. So what you see in that report is an image with everything turned on. So the white areas are those that have significant planning constraints, so they're in flood zones or they're in national landscapes or they're in green belts. You can turn those off, so you can see the multicolored mapping underneath if you so desire. I was just trying to select one image that illustrates it all as it is.
In the report in its final form in the published domain reflects that, because otherwise it looks as though we've and I understood Andy's concerns.
Yes, I see that, yes. And also, you know, each area can be drilled into. So in that tool, that's the strategic level tool there in that image. You can see the region at the same level. In the other tool, WSP one, Western Gateway has provided the tool and its functionality. But actually to have the data for a local authority is integrated and displayed in that tool, there's a processing, quite an extensive processing system that needs to go on, for which each individual local authority had to decide whether or not they wanted to have their data integrated, and there was a small cost associated with that, so £5,000. So in that one, not all of our authorities have opted to be included in that. So the coverage will only be, when it gets to launch in October, for those authorities that have opted in.
Thank you. Do people have any other questions or comments?
Only comment, it's very comprehensive, Chair. Thank you.
Same for me. I just think it's a really impressive piece of work, and I hadn't seen the detail of it before, but and particularly the reference to the health elements, which I think are going to be fantastically useful. And I think we're potentially going to be looking further about the future of what's so valuable about being here. It's work like this, I think, is really critically helpful to local authorities, which we couldn't possibly do on our own, really. And I also think it's been brought in for actually a remarkable budget. When you look at the work that's been done here and the amount that we've allocated to it over the course of the year, it's not a big budget, is it?
But it is why I didn't quite stretch to, you know, bringing in all the authorities.
Sure.
Yeah, that's good. Hopefully, that tool as well as a suggestion that it potentially be puts up for a national reward at the end of the year. So that's noted in the paper.
Well,
That's supported.
well done, Hannah. Can we minute our thanks to the team for this? And I don't know about anybody else. I want to get hold of the model when it's ready to be launched and have a play. I can just imagine how much time I could spend learning more about our region. Well, because we all think we know our region and then actually we don't. Thank you hugely from all of us for this piece of work.
She's not here anymore, but obviously Hattie, but a lot of as well. So I'll pass thanks down to Peninsula Ocean Hours as well for that partners.
Thank you very much indeed. And can we remember that when we get to questions about what sorts of things we want the region to be doing next to help us all. Thank you. Morag's now with us. Don't say we've lost her again. There she is. Robert.
I'm here.
All right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So we're now going back to paper C, the rail freight feasibility study. Maura, I gather you would like to do a little introduction.
Ian is going to do this. Ian Brooker, I'd introduce my director, who is just going to throw up some slides for you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for inviting us to talk, and thanks for inviting us to do the study. I think some of you who have been at our previous presentation where we showed the results, and some of you have been involved in the study all the way through, so apologies if there's any repetition. But just as a reminder, the aim of the study was to look at the opportunity to develop a new rail freight terminal in the Avonmouth area, and to see whether that was something that was feasible, and to recommend how that could happen. Just a quick reminder, what we're looking at here is an intermodal terminal. So it's a terminal which would handle containers to and from trains, carrying what you could call general merchandise, but goods for supermarkets, goods for retail, goods for industry, and so on. And to a very large extent, the terminal would be there to serve a need which is already there, which is in the Avonmouth area, where there's a huge concentration of distribution space and warehousing. At the moment, all of those goods obviously have to come in by road and are dispatched by road. And the idea is to see if we can transfer some of that road flow into an opportunity for rail. And in rail terms, looking at markets, there's two big markets that we would be looking at. One is maritime, which is to and from the ports. So obviously, big warehouses like the ones in the Avonmouth area, a lot of them are receiving imported goods or are exporting goods through ports such as Felixstowe, Southampton, and London Gateway. The other opportunity is for what we call domestic intermodal, which is a newer market, but growing quite fast, which is moving containers between distribution centres, national distribution centres and regional distribution centres. Very typically, it's goods moving between the Midlands and regional distribution centres. So there are huge volumes of trucks every day moving between, say, these Midlands and the Avonmouth area. And then one final thing on intermodal, one of the key drivers of the growth of intermodal, which is the fastest growing rail sector, is that there are more and more rail connected warehousing. So basically, if a warehouse is near to a railhead, rail has an opportunity to compete. If a warehouse is not near a railhead, rail doesn't have an opportunity to compete. And so these new railheads at places like Durft, which is Daventry, Doncaster, East Midlands, they're the things which have been driving rail freight growth. Looking at Avonmouth compared to, say, Wentloog in South Wales, just to the east of Cardiff, is a very successful rail terminal with a cluster of warehouses around it, and it serves about 4 trains per day at the moment, including trains from the Midlands for Tesco, which is an interesting opportunity. But if you look at Avonmouth, that should be to the same scale, if I've done it right. There's actually far more warehousing. There's a huge cluster of warehousing in Avonmouth. And one of the questions we set ourselves for this study was, why hasn't an intermodal facility been developed at Avonmouth before? And the report includes some answers to that question, but it's largely about the size of the tunnels and bridges, which weren't big enough for rail freight to Avonmouth, but they now are. And it was also about the need, the centre of demand, the cluster of demand that's grown up in the last 10 years or so with all the warehouses there. And there's a few other answers which are in the report. Looking at the report and talking to stakeholders, we thought that there could potentially be 6 trains a day serving a terminal in this area. And they would be coming from Felixstowe, London Gateway, from the Midlands, and possibly from Southampton, which is kind of on the boundary of being too close, but we think it would be viable. And also possibly a service from the terminal down to the southwest, with Avonmouth being a very major regional distribution hub, lots of lorries going down to the southwest, at the southwest peninsula, and that could be transferred to rail. We looked at a dozen or so sites in the Avonmouth area, and we did a full appraisal of the opportunities for each of those sites. We came up with 2 which were viable. Most of the ones which weren't viable were because of land ownership issues, environmental constraints, or simply there wasn't the space available for a rail terminal. But the 2 which we favoured were, one is site A on that map, which is the one next to the Suez Energy for Waste plant. And the second one would be on the port. And we preferred the Suez terminal largely because, first of all, there's already a siding there, which is a very big advantage because it means you don't have to pay for a very expensive rail connection. And also it's right in the heart of where the demand is. So a lot of the deliveries would be just for a few hundred meters or a kilometer, probably using an electric truck for the final delivery. And that would maximize the potential for the terminal to be viable. So that yellow area is where we think that the sidings could be. So the purple area is the existing Suez rail terminal, which is quite a small facility. It handles 1 train a day. They are containers, but they're different size and shape to the bigger intermodal trains that we would handle at this location. There are some challenges with the location. We need to bottom out some land ownership issues. Also, to get there, the train has to reverse twice, and that takes quite a long time. It has to go down from Bristol Parkway, effectively, into Avonmouth area, port area, and then it goes backwards up to Severn Beach, and then it goes back again down to the terminal. That all takes a bit of time. There's also the issue of capacity, because you have to fit it in with the existing passenger services. And we think we've got some solutions for that, but that's something that we would suggest looking at in more detail later. Just a couple more slides. We looked at the financial, economic and business case. And there is a big benefit here that we don't have to spend 10, 20 million pounds in providing a rail connection, and the land is already level and suitable for trains. But it would still cost 10, 15 million pounds to build the terminal and provide the cranes and so on. And we think with 6 trains per day, that terminal could potentially cover those investment costs. But if it was less than 6 trains per day, it probably wouldn't. And there's also a funding gap, partly for the land and partly to manage the risk of the early startup years when the terminal isn't covering its full costs. Having said that, the value for money from modal shift using the Treasury's Green Book approach would be very significant. We haven't done a full environmental cost benefit analysis, but we think that the benefits cost ratio will be well in excess of 2, and that's fairly typical for rail freight and modal shift schemes. So the key risks that we've identified, as I said, landowner engagement, rail access complexity, operational constraints, funding uncertainty, and the mitigation is really working with stakeholders to understand some of these issues a bit better, proposing a design which can be phased in rather than spending the whole amount at once, which would be viable with smaller volumes, and developing a comprehensive business case for potential investors. The next steps that we've suggested in the report, securing landowner consent, so understanding what the landowner wants. That site is effectively in the Central Park logistics park, and it has always been earmarked as a potential rail freight terminal. The developer hasn't really needed to develop that because they've been so successful in developing that land in any case. So it's still there as a gap. And if you look at their advertising brochures and so on, you'll see rail freight terminal indicated there. We want to look into the operational questions, and in particular, how a freight service would be compatible with the passenger operation, particularly if the passenger operation increases to 2 services an hour or even 3 services an hour. But we think that there are solutions to that. We want to develop, we think you should develop the project business case a little bit further, look at the delivery model, the role of the public sector and the role of the private sector in the delivery model, agree a planning strategy and scheme design, and then continue to engage the freight industry stakeholders. We've spoken to a number of important rail freight companies, and they're all very strongly supportive of this. And I think it's recognised across the industry that Avonmouth is a gap in the network that needs to be addressed. There we are. That was a very, very quick rush through, but hopefully that will leave you an opportunity to ask any questions.
That was a brilliant whistle stop tour. Thank you, Ian. Questions? People would be happy if Christine. Yeah, go on, Christine.
Yes, I was wondering, so it's Christine the Biggs from the Bristol Rail campaign. So obviously this is our patch. Yes, we are keen on increasing services from between Avonmouth and Severn Beach. You know, it's currently hourly. It used to be 2 hourly. So I think you need to talk to WECA fairly quickly. But yeah, I think obviously we're in favour of freight. I was wondering about the Hallen loop. I think there's a proposal by Network Rail to do a little loop up to Hallen. Would that help? Just have first the once then.
Yes, it would very much so. That's one of the things we recommended in the report, that extra curve should be put in, and that would significantly speed up the operation and simplify it. And it looks as though it would be feasible there. It's on the other corner of the Chittenden estate, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly solve the passenger train because you could just have a separate loop altogether for freight. Yeah.
You'd need, yes, I think that the challenge is the siding currently faces the wrong way up the Severn Beach branch, and we need a bit more capacity on the Severn Beach branch for the freight service. Now we have come up with a potential operational solution, but also with a bit of investment in signalling, we think it should be feasible to do that.
So just one next question.
You've asked a question, did
I was just going to highlight that the Combined Authorities currently has recently commissioned a branch one study, which is looking at the potential interventions required to boost rail service frequency within that area, in particular with an emphasis around the levels of development expected within the West Innovation Arc. And presume it's right, it is important that the paths that are allocated for freight are considered as part of that work. So yes. I will take that message back to my colleague who is the project manager.
And that includes Pilning, it includes Severn Beach, the Avonmouth line, the Hem Loop, Hallen. That's the whole.
It is between the Temple Meads and the West Innovation Arc primarily, but obviously the Avonmouth Severn area is an additional
part of
the growth strategy.
I just one point clarification. Is it the same as the CETA terminal, or is that different?
Yes, yeah, it's the same place. Yes, it's now called Suez, I think. Yeah.
Are there other questions, Sarah?
So I'm Sarah Warren from Bath and North East Somerset Council. So it's just to say, I mean, as one of the constituent authorities of the west of England, this seems like an incredibly positive plan to be coming forward that will take the pressure off of our motorways and leading through our towns, I guess, and improve air quality as well as reducing carbon emissions. So and improving safety, we've heard earlier. So that's it seems incredibly positive. What are the next steps in terms of getting this onto the agenda of the West of England Combined Authority?
That's a full question.
Okay. Well, thank you for Lara for their presentation as well. And they highlighted the decongestion, the decarbonisation, the growth opportunities. I just want to pick up also the point about highway safety. There is a recent renewed emphasis on reducing casualty numbers on the highway network. Lorries do tend to bear a disproportionate burden in terms of casualty numbers. They don't mix as well as they could with vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists. National highways, you would think, will prick up their ears at this as well because of the risk of heavy goods vehicle interacting with a queue of traffic blocking back from a motorway junction, and it is national highways have a very high concern on road safety and also a desire to clear traffic off the motorway at the junctions where there may be capacity problems. In terms of progression of this piece of work, in addition to these next steps highlighted, searching potential funding opportunities with the other area. There may be more than one opportunity. I mean, obviously, there have been recent announcements about the Transport City Regions allocations for the within the combined authority area. I would emphasise this is a very strategic project, as highlighted by Polaris. You know, the freight flows expected, the potential flows coming in from Birmingham, Peninsula, Southampton, ports, London, and so on. Takes more than such a strategic approach to take it forward. And there may be other grant-related opportunities as well that we would probably need to explore. And I'm really searching in the back of my memory of the previous section 8 grants. I can't remember what the term was, so I should know. So that'll be another element just to bear in mind in terms of how we can progress this, because obviously rail freight does not get the attention that it deserves. Sorry, that's a rather emotional point. But
it's long been a passion of the STB to do more about rail freight, because so much of the highways problems across our region are driven by HGVs.
Okay.
And so rail freight is really important to us. On that basis, is everybody really wanting to welcome this report and encouraging progress on the next steps?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you all very much. Ian and Morag, thank you both very much indeed for this work.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. That takes us into item 9, paper E, which is James again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Paper E is technical programme progress update report. There's a lot been going on Western Gateway wise, and there's a lot coming up as well. So I'll just give you a flavour of the things that are actually happening. Taking freight first, we've just heard about the Polaris work on freight, rail freight terminal at Avonmouth. Our freight forum, which is a joint freight forum with Peninsula Transport, very good example of cross-boundary working. Our next forum is going to be held on the 23rd of September, and Polaris will also be appearing at that one and giving a more in-depth presentation as well, if anyone wants to come along.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
If you want to go to that Polaris event, this is members of the board now. Sorry, Christine, not you. Can you let James know if you're not in that working group but you're interested? Sorry, do carry on.
Yep. We've also got our freight awareness work, which was to tackle the whole issue about people aren't aware of requirements of freight, and that whole bundle of material produced, and that's now on our Regional Centre of Excellence website. Rail, we heard earlier about Dorset Metro and the West of England line, but there's also the Westbury Platform Zero project, which we talked about before last time. Work on that's now started. We signed the basic service agreement with Network Rail. That's about bringing Platform Zero back into use. It has major capacity and performance and reliability benefits, north, south, east and west, including Devizes Gateway Station as well. And very pleased to say that Wiltshire Council have come on board on that project and are putting in funding to do the timetable capacity work as well. EV charging carries on with our officer working group. This is another joint one with the Peninsula. Next meeting for that group is coming up in September. Also coming up very soon is the Coach Forum, Southwest Coach Forum meeting. That's on the 14th of October. Taking the points they've raised about accessible coaches, we'll put that on the agenda. We also want to pick up the audit of coach parking locations, which was undertaken by our consultants earlier on this year, and looking at potential ways to address some of the issues that have been identified in that study. Cycling, we have a small amount of money available to help start to develop the case for 3 of the strategic routes which came out of the cycle network report. Those are Wareham to Paul, Bournemouth to Christchurch, Felton Barrow Lane to Bedminster, and Kitchen to Portishead. And we will also be working very closely with officers from all the local authorities. Buses have been on hold for quite a long time. There has been a long term commitment to do more on buses, particularly looking at cross-boundary issues. We've had a resource issue on that. We now have 2 new transport officers starting. I'll come on to those in a moment. The report just outlines possible ideas for where we want to look at. But this is still very much work in progress. Nothing is set in stone, but it is about taking that wider regional picture and looking at cross-boundary issues. Rural mobility, we've got 3 pilots being funded this year. They're all doing very well. I'll just draw attention to the Bridport to West Bay weekend shuttle bus service, which we helped to fund. It now offers a very easy way to get from Bridport down to West Bay and back. And since launching at the end of July, it's carried just under 1,500 passengers. That's probably more now because that figure would have been when we wrote the report. And one of the first passengers was a 98-year-old. Wow, so very good news there. We've got this year's round of rural mobility funding bids. That's all gone out for applications. Closing date is the 5th of October. Regional Centre of Excellence, Hannah has already covered. And then I just mentioned very briefly about going forward and future funding. We haven't had confirmed yet the exact amount of funding we're going to get 26, 27. Ben Kempner from the Department of Transport will be able to give a bit of an update on what's happening on the funding situation for STBs in a moment. We are fully funded for this year's programme, and we do have a contingency budget to carry on working next year as well. And it is important that we do carry on working and being useful to all the local authorities, and bearing in mind that it's very much a changing devolution landscape. The STB will need to evolve to reflect those changes, and that will be reflected in the business plan, which we'll bring back to the board. And finally, Chair, just to flag up, we briefly mentioned it just now, we have 2 new transport officers who are with us today. We have Addy Rosa, and Tim Woodhead. Addy actually started on Monday and Tim the week before, so it's all baptism of fire time. And I'm also pleased to say that we have recruited to the Transport Research and Data Officer post as well. And Rob Smith is going to be joining us on secondment from the West of England Combined Authority for a year. So we're very pleased that we've got this extra resource in, and we're going to have lots and lots of work to give them as well.
Welcome to all 3 of you. What I propose to do around the future funding arrangements is to park that until after we've had a conversation with Ben from Department for Transport, so that we've got his responses. So can we at this stage talk any questions you've got about any of the other work programmes? Or is that a comprehensive enough report that you're all happy to note it and say thank you for getting on with it all?
Yeah, no problem.
Fine, right, well, let's note that and say thank you for getting on with it. Finance update, Mina.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think James have already started the finance update. So in terms of the total funding that we have for this financial year, we have just nearly 101 million pounds, for this financial year, with a total of 180k from local authorities and the other 816,000 from the Bank of Transport. In terms of the average spend to date, we do have just over 200,000 pounds that we've spent from the beginning of this year to date. That incorporates staffing and the technical program as well. In terms of the forecast, we have program management costs, which include staffing, engagement activities, and kind of the overall operational cost for the Western Gateway. That totals to just above 500,000 pounds, and the other half, the technical program, is just above 300k. So just key points to make the strategy can remain broadly on track with expectation, and was aligned with what we focused at, but that will be reversed for the next board meeting because we do have in-year staff increments that needs to be included in forecast. Another point to note is that the technical spend is milestone driven, so what needs to be completed by consultant before we pay. So that is expected to accelerate, through the remainder of the year. So we aim to kind of minimize the budget that we carry over to the next financial year. One last one, as James already mentioned, is that we do have a contingency board. So that is going to cover liabilities or any risk and stuff like that. So overall, I think Western Gateway is kind of financially on track for this year so far. So we just need to continue proactive and monitoring and put some flexibility in place to kind of manage any cost pressure or any kind of reallocations and make sure we optimize delivery of the technical program. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That report is just for noting unless anybody's got any questions. No, right. So we note that, in which case we move on to item 11, and that's reports from our various associate members. We're going to start, Ben, if you're there. Yes.
Hello.
With your verbal update. And what we're asking is short update, and then we'll pummel you with questions.
That's
I'm dashed
fine.
we all have lots of interesting questions.
No problem at all. So I'm Ben Kempner, the DFT sponsor for Western Gateway and also the Southwest Area Lead. I'll give you a quick update on the draft road investment strategy for the third road period, and then we'll move on to the integrated national transport strategy as well. So the third road investment strategy was drafted recently, and that covers the 5 years from the 1st of April 26 through to the 31st of March 2031, and it follows on from a period of 12-month interim settlement, which covered 1st of April 25 and goes up to the 31st of March 26. So a settlement of over £24 billion for the RIS3 period has been agreed. And this represents almost £3 billion increase over the final funding for 2020 to 2025. And that funding also excludes costs associated with the development and delivery of the Lower Thames crossing, which was about just under £1 billion. So the draft road investment strategy is the government's statement of what it wishes National Highways to deliver and the outcomes that are sought for the strategic road network, as well as confirming the resources available for that. And it was informed by responses to the consultation and also further engagement with key stakeholders over a period of time. And it will also form a very important part of the 10-year infrastructure strategy as well. There are some key themes within RIS3, and that is operations, maintenance and renewals. And it also includes 6 key objectives as well, which are road safety, fast and reliable journeys, good asset management, improved environmental outcomes, meeting road user needs, and also efficient delivery as well. And obviously we recognise within that that transport infrastructure needs to serve everybody, and by investing in the strategic road network, we are able to reduce regional inequalities to ensure that all parts of the UK can benefit from faster, safer and more reliable road travel. So that is the key objective within that. Safety, customer service and delivery also remain very, very important parts of the strategy, and it's going to commit to the replacement of existing worn out roads and also set standards for National Highways to improve road safety and surface quality. Of course, National Highways have already made a lot of progress in cutting the number of crashes that happen on major roads and the severity of those. So RIS3 will continue the work by focusing on reducing deaths and serious injuries, and also by improving the safety on roads, notably on the single carriageway A roads. And I think, you know, this road investment strategy has got more focus than before on the maintenance and renewal of the network as well, because obviously that's a key concern at the moment. It reflects on the feedback from responses in the consultation as well. And all schemes already in construction or due to start in the interim period will continue as planned. So following the spending review in June, we've recommitted to 5 additional schemes and continue to work with National Highways to identify the most efficient delivery timescales for those schemes as well. Those will be confirmed in the National Highways Delivery Plan, which will be published in due course. And in terms of next steps, the draft strategic business plan from National Highways indicates whether it believes the government's objectives can be delivered within the resources available, and that will go to the Office of Road and Rail. They'll undertake an efficiency review of that strategic business plan to confirm the proposals within it. and we expect their response by the end of November this year. And the expectation is that the final RIS will be published no later than March 2026. So that's the road investment strategy. Latest news on that. In terms of the integrated national transport strategy, so back in June, over the course of a week, the integrated national transport strategy team held 7 people's panels as part of their engagement plan. They heard directly from 56 members of the public across England, and that included disabled people, women and girls, older and younger people, rural communities, and those on low incomes as well. And the sessions lasted between 1.5 and 2 hours, and it just gave people the opportunity to share real life experiences and really put forward some of the difficulties that they face in travel, what works well, what could be done better, and that's really allowed the team to consider how they can make the transport system better and more inclusive for people. So those were really useful sessions. The integrated transport strategy itself focuses on 3 key principles, and that's people, place, and partnership. So putting people's needs at the heart of everything we do. And the 3 main priorities from that segment are making travel accessible and inclusive, streamlining travel information and ticketing, providing dependable and safe journeys. And then in the second principle, which is to use transport to create better connected places across the country, it's about aligning transport and housing, creating healthier and cleaner communities, championing technology and innovation, and then working in partnership with local leaders, collaborators and experts. The 3 key themes within that are empowering local leaders around decision making, optimising decision making and appraisal, and improving collaboration through data. So the plan is to publish the strategy later this year, and there's already a lot of engagement continuing as well. They're working closely with the ADEPT Transport and Connectivity Board. There's a meeting that this week. They spoke to the ADEPT leadership team yesterday. They're also attending some of the mayoral combined authority engagement meetings as well. So quite a lot going on in that area at the moment. Those are the 2 sort of main areas I was going to cover, but obviously from the conversation this morning, I appreciate that major concerns around sort of buses at the moment. Now, you'll all be aware that there's £900 million of resource funding that's being put forward per year to improve bus services, and that includes rural areas as well. We expect the individual allocations to be announced in the autumn for local authorities. So that's where we are at the moment with those. And some work has been going on in the internal business planning processes to look at the formula for the bus grant as well. So, some of the feedback, I know there's feedback about the Dorset allocation there. That's something that I've fed back to our buses team here, because I recognise there was a lot of concern about that and the decision making around that. In terms of sort of DRT work, I mean, I certainly I speak to local authorities on a regular basis, and we do talk about rural areas and the concerns in those, certainly connectivity and so on. There's some really good work going on with the DRT pilots that you've mentioned, and also other programs as well in parts of the southwest. I won't sort of name check authorities, but a lot of work that's going on has been really, really good, and some of that will be mentioned in the integrated national transport strategy, I'm sure. So there is a lot of work ongoing in that space at the moment. There'll be some DRT guidance coming out as well, and also from a rural perspective as well, active travel guidance is being drafted as well, and it's been shared with the local authorities in draft format. So there is quite a lot going on around the rural side at the moment. I think it's it's more a focus on it now, which is really positive. So hopefully that sort of provides a bit of reassurance on that side. And I think the only other thing to mention is that local transport grant revenue funding has also been announced in the most recent couple of weeks. So that's all out there as well. I think that's probably all I was going to say at this stage, but happy to take any questions that people have.
Ben, can I start from the chair and just say,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for these. We were talking earlier, and I think we all find it absolutely priceless to have these opportunities around the table. There's, I don't know how many £1 million worth of responsibility for travel and transport spend, and the chance to have these face-to-face meetings is really, really valued by all of us. So whatever happens in the future, we want to keep these conversations going. Questions? Do you want to follow up first, John? Because Dorset was getting quite a lot of name checks.
Yeah, we did get a lot of name checks there. Thank you very much, Ben. No, it creates a problem for our residents who are our customers and your customers to travel around. The rural bus grants just didn't work this year. We had the smallest grant out of all the regions around us, and it wasn't cut up the way we needed it to be. We can't afford to. We haven't got the capital money to go and buy our own bus firm and employ people to run it, which seems to be the message I'm getting from central government that, you know, oh, you'll be able to run your own bus companies. Well, give us some money, we might, but we're talking about loads and loads of millions of pounds, not just £3 million split between two categories. So thank you very much for having Dorset in mind, but we'll wait and see what happens. But mayoral authorities, I think, are a long way off. They say 2027. There's no plans for elections in 2027.
Thank you for the feedback on that. Thank you.
Martin, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. There was an awful lot of information there. It was all very interesting, but I was trying to keep up with it.
You get the notes afterwards, fill it out.
Yes. But just for my just for clarity, we're talking about the budget for major roads schemes, and obviously we've got 3 in the review section at the moment. Did you say that decision will be made by March 2026 on those? Was that?
Oh, right.
Was that related to that, or was it something else?
That's something else. So this is the strategic road network. Now, the major road network is separate to that. So there are a number of schemes in the southwest that are under review at the moment, and local authorities for MRN schemes had to provide their sort of feedback and survey forms. I think the 12th of September was the deadline on that. So that's literally just passed, as far as I know. I think everyone got their sort of review forms back in. And I'm saying the 12th of September, that's from memory, so apologies if that isn't quite correct. Basically, the MRN team now will do some reviewing of those. There are quite a number on the list, and it's not just in Southwest, by the way, there's quite a number right across the country that are under review. And I think the plan around that is also to do some engagement directly with the local authorities as well, based on responses and so on. So there will be some engagement there. I no doubt that the MRN team will probably talk to me as well as the area lead. So there's going to be quite a bit of work on that going through. In terms of timelines, I don't really want to sort of give a best guess or anything on that, because I think with there being so many different schemes under review that there will be an awful lot of work to do in terms of reviewing those. So I mean, I would expect it to take sort of months rather than weeks at this stage, but rest assured that there'll be a thorough sort of review process on those. So hopefully sort of get more information to you on that over the coming weeks, really.
Certainly from an STB, I don't know if you were able to listen earlier, we're supporting all 3 of the ones for different reasons that are under review, and we'll be very happy as an STB to engage with whoever, whether it's you or the MRN team, about those and how they fit into the regional approach.
Thank you, Chair. That's really, really helpful. Okay.
Sarah.
So I'm Sarah Warren from Bath and North East Somerset Council. So I just wanted to pick up on the conversation you were having about rural buses, to say, currently we work obviously closely with the West of England Combined Authority on our bus provision, and I suppose I wanted to comment that we've been dealing with a 1-year bus grant at the moment. which of course makes it very hard to commission even any new bus service at all with grants of that length, because you need several years for a bus service to bed in. And we are now entering our budget setting process proper, and we were at a workshop, so we're working very closely now with the West of England Combined Authority. Went to a bus workshop recently looking at the funding, and I have to say we started that workshop with a sort of 30-year ahead visioning plan about what was transport going to be like, and then we said, right, let's get down to finance. This is the money that's available. What we're going to cut, essentially, so we visioned into the future about how we're all going to be using public transport everywhere. And between the timelines that we're working to and the amounts of money that we're working with, the here and now doesn't match that vision. And so we've got a bit of a cliff edge coming up locally in terms of contracts ending, and we're already into the budget setting process, and we still don't know what it is we're going to be allocated. So just to put that over to you, that some of that makes it quite tricky to plan the mode shift that we're really working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And actually, I was talking to West of England Combined Authority yesterday in our sort of quarterly review meeting, and that is actually a very issue that I've escalated this morning. So it is something that I've mentioned previously, and I do recognise that particularly local authorities, which are sort of quite heavily subsidising their local bus services, that actually it's very, very difficult, especially if you want to extend contracts rather than go right back to square one with new contracts as well. So I do completely appreciate that, and that is something that I have escalated this morning. So I can't make any promises, but I do recognise that the situation is incredibly difficult if you are trying to set a budget, and you don't have the sort of the tools, if you like, with which to do it, alongside the sort of admin processes that come with that. So it's something that I do have a complete understanding of, and if there's anything that I can do about that, then obviously I will do. But we at the moment, the position we're in is that the bus grants will be the actual allocations of the local authorities will come out sometime later this year in the autumn. I do keep sort of pushing for updates, so I will continue to do that.
Thank you. Unless Hannah,
it's just a follow-up really to Sarah's question. Hannah Young, Cabinet Lead from North Somerset. We've obviously been anticipating that the bus settlement, when it comes, will be multi-year for local authorities and for combined authorities. Can you assure us that's still the thinking? Because that is obviously one of the key barriers around commissioning services for longer term.
As far as I'm aware, that is the case. Yeah, it should be a 3-year settlement. I think quite a number of the sort of like the local transport grant and things like that have been multi-year. Certainly, when you sort of look at the gov.uk website, and that you've got the set out in the table format, and I assume that's what will happen with the bus grant. Again, if anything sort of changes from that, then we will let you know urgently, but that's certainly my understanding of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I wondered whether, before we move on to other people, whether there was anything you wanted to say to inform our discussion that we're going to have, and as well about future funding of STBs.
Yeah,
whether you would rather we had that conversation without you having to say anything.
I think no, absolutely. I mean, look, I think absolutely recognise that that it's disappointing news for everybody, and I think that there is a real strong recognition, from ministers of the valuable work that STBs have achieved, and the collaborative working that has been demonstrated, and there is still very much an aspiration to keep that going, and it was really heartening to actually hear that you want to carry that on going forward, and that's something that I would do my very best to support you with. And I think we've also just released a letter or further sort of brief guidance to chief executives of STBs today, which sort of gives a little bit more advice on the ways forward and sort of timelines around that. So I think it's definitely worth having a look at that. You probably haven't seen it yet because it's only just come out this afternoon. And then I think once you've sort of had a conversation with everybody, in terms of what your I guess what your options that you want to take forward are. We can then have a conversation as well about that, sort of separately, and try and work through the best options, because I think we're keen to get feedback from every STB in terms of how the regions want to work going forward and what the best kind of process is for that. So obviously it's a little bit early days at the moment, but sponsors are still here to provide that support and that period of transition as well. And from our perspective, we're big advocates of the work that you're doing. So I appreciate it's disappointing, but we'll do everything we can to provide the support going forward.
I think probably I can speak. We haven't yet had the debate, but we have had conversations, obviously. And I was surprised and pleased at the unanimity that actually it's really important we take the STB forward, and that rather than looking backwards, it's about looking forward and developing the future partnership and future structure. And we have some thoughts about what we need to be doing and the timelines in which we need to be doing it. And maybe if you could hang with us whilst we deal with the other two reports, we'll then come to Aobi. If that's all right. Is that all right?
Absolutely, more than happy to.
Thank you, Ben. Matt and Bogdan, Network Rail. 5 minutes.
That's absolutely fine. Hi, everybody. It's Jamie is on the call, isn't he? I'm just checking Bogdan, isn't it? So yeah, me and Jamie. Apologies, I'm not with you in person. Apologies, also have only dialed in for this session, this section in the site office in Oxford today. So I would like to be there. And actually, just very briefly, you'll have heard me say this before, but we have found it and continue to find it immensely valuable working with the STB on strategic rail planning. It's a sort of level of geography that fits very well, I think, for what we're trying to do. Clearly had a good history of bringing studies to fruition and developing them, and we're still doing that. So obviously, we look forward to supporting colleagues in the STB in whatever guise. Very briefly, then we've got, last time I mentioned a couple of the studies we were about to start, so I'll just give you a short update on the studies that we have now started. So we have kicked off our Gloucestershire Rail Review. This is a bit of work looking at the M5 corridor, but particularly in Gloucestershire. It's aligned to the work that Homes England are leading, and indeed National Highways are part of as well. And it is bringing up to speed the study that we jointly delivered 4 or 5 years ago, to make sure that we are taking advantage of things like the Midlands Rail Hub decisions, which I mentioned last time, and aspirations for new stations in that corridor. So it's a joint bit of work, as is our the fashion that we've conducted really successfully together. That kicked off in the end of August, about 6 months of work there. We've also started just earlier this week our Bath Bristol strategic study, and this is recognising the level of ambition both in terms of transport planning, but underpinning that in terms of growth, economic growth, housing growth in that corridor. And actually we need to be able to set out something that is perhaps a level more ambitious than our previous work in that corridor. So that Bath Bristol study is again very much collaborative with Western Gateway and other partners, and that's a little bit slightly longer program, but due to complete next summer. Those we would envisage giving rise to or supporting investable business cases that we will continue to make the case for, and the case being made locally with real evidence of real transport problems and the benefit that heavy rail can bring is we've already found is really instrumental in getting things that bit further down the road towards delivery. The other one I'll touch upon is the Wiltshire Rail Investment Programme, where I know it's been mentioned, but really enjoying working together on that one with the engineering work about to commence, looking at the Platform Zero at Westbury, so the additional platform there. So all the detailed work that's obviously funded by the STB and will be completed by the end of the calendar year. And that's accompanied by a bit of timetabling work that Wiltshire have indicated that they will fund, which is really another really good example of collaborating on this kind of a strategic programme. That will also complete by the end of the year, and that will give us a really good foundation for bringing forward a business case for reinstating Platform Zero at Westbury and improving local services and interregional services in Wiltshire, which is one of the key planks of the Wiltshire Rail Improvement Programme. And of course, also has some alignment with other proposals that are in the news, if you like, at the moment for improving connectivity in Wiltshire, which, as we have said before in this forum and many others, we think is a real priority for the railway system and for all of us. Avonmouth Terminal's been mentioned. That study, been really pleased to be part of that, and absolutely committed to supporting Western Gateway and other local partners in bringing that forward in future. And then it's a very worth bringing you into some work that we're doing, looking at the expansion of Heathrow Airport, of course, which is very much topical. You'll remember in the past that one of the opportunities for improving access to Heathrow, which is likely to be a requirement of expanding the airport, is a Direct Western scheme. It may well be that that comes back around again, and there are opportunities there, regardless of exact service specification, for improved access, but potentially something that we partners might want to think about is role for sort of direct access to. And I think that improving access from the Western Gateway area is going to be a key priority to meet the environmental targets associated with expanding Heathrow. So that's an exciting bit of work as well, and one that might be worth tracking. That's it from me. Jamie, apologies. We've not managed to sync very well, is it? But I think you've got a couple of updates as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Can we keep it short, Jamie? I'm sorry.
Yes, I mean, it's only a couple of things, but firstly, just thank you again. The stuff we've done on Tisbury and indeed the Dorset Metro, which though wasn't as positive as I'd hoped, we'll still work with James on the multimodal work. So it's been a really positive experience for us. So thank you for that. I just wanted to quickly update you on the soil moisture deficit issue on the West of England line, which has led to the service being reduced. We don't still know when that's going to end. Essentially, because of the dry spring and the dry weather, the clay all contracts, the track geometry gets out of sync, and we have to go slower. And the key thing I want to say here is that the work we've been doing on Tisbury and indeed on the Devon Metro stuff up at the West End, what we want to do going forward, once we start to get the data on how performance has been impacted by this, is to look at what if we'd had these things, what if we'd extended the Tisbury loop, could we have run a better service than reducing it to one train every other hour? So we're already trying to think about how we can pull that together. So we don't know when it's going to change. We've had a lot of rain recently, but I don't think it's quite as quick as that. But we continue to work with SWR, and I know they're clearing a lot of the sort of thirsty trees that are sucking up the water on the embankments, etc. And the other quick thing, so the Network Rail SWR integrated leadership now that SWR have come into DFTO, the DFT operator. The integrated exec will stand up in October, November, and I think that's when we'll start seeing change, when the top guys are in and start to work out their teams, etc. The legislation for making GBR, which sort of forms all part of this, is due in 2017, but we're already working on how we can work together. And
2027,
yeah.
Yes. And already I've been involved with talking to the consultants who are looking at how GBR and the mayoral combined authorities will work together going forward in sort of partnership and that. And we talked extensively about the work that we've done with Western Gateway and the local authorities and how positive it had been. So trying to make that point that yes, we do already have great relationships with the likes of yourself. But that's me done.
Thank you. I know we've got two questions because we had them from the public, one of which is about rolling stock and our rolling stock shortages, and one of which is my perennial question to Matt, which is Westerly Junction. Don't know how you want to respond. Matt, can you speak slower, because we're having trouble picking you up. Your line is a bit hit and miss. So if Jamie can answer, that would be better.
So yes, so from a rolling stock point of view, So we ourselves are looking at the class 158s, 159s. So they're the ones that run on the West of England line because they come to end of life in the mid 2030s. So we're working with SWR at the moment. And obviously GWR are looking at their wider fleet replacement. I believe that DFT are pulling together a rolling stock strategy. And there's a meeting, I want to say October, November, someone, Matt, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's October, November, where they're going to talk a little bit more about what they've been thinking on rolling stock strategy. And I think from that will start to flow out to the routes and the regions on how future rolling stock changes and what they're going to be. So, for instance, the West of England line, we've been looking at partial electrification and looking at battery trains, etc. So I'm not sure that's a good answer to you, actually. I've just waffled at you there. Did that help?
We'll follow up with a letter.
Okay.
We'll send you a more precise letter.
Yeah, I think it's not totally in our gift at the moment. We'll see what comes of the DFT announcement in October, November.
Westerly Junction.
That will have to be Matt.
So what is the exact question? I'm very happy to answer it now.
It's the perennial one, which is when is it going to be hitting the timelines for getting the work done? We have now protected the zone around it in the local plan, but we need to kind of know when you might be starting to do something.
Yeah.
And WECA are sitting in the room nodding frantically.
So obviously a mega scheme, should that come forward, and we very much hope it does, all we can do is make the strongest possible case for it. So we've invested time and money in feasibility, understanding what we think a viable improvement looks like. We've got quite a good idea of that. We've also got a good idea of when the junction is effectively full, and it's very nearly full, as we know. It will be a hard thing to fund. It will be an affordability challenge for any funder, and therefore an element of it is, as I say, being prepared with the best possible case, but making sure we're ready when the time is right, if you like. And we're working with WECA, obviously, on service development around the Bristol area. Clearly, there are long distance aspirations as well, and freight. I can't tell you when it will be done. I think it is one of the 3 or 4 real bottlenecks around Western Route that will remain up there as a high priority, owing to the scale and inevitably the cost of it. All we can do as partners is keep evidencing and then putting forward the strongest possible case. And we are doing that and are committed to keeping doing that. And if it would be useful, I can share some more detailed information about where we've got to with everybody. And we can think about a bigger role for partners in helping to sort of up the ante.
That will be helpful. Phil, do you want any more than that at this stage, Will?
I think that's very helpful, Chair. Obviously, it is a strategic, the fact it's a strategic bottleneck, I'll get those words out, but it has strategic regional implications in terms of West Midlands, London, South Wales.
North, south, east, west, all meet there.
Bristol Parkway Station section.
Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Warren from Bath and North East Somerset Council, and Matt, I was very excited to hear you talk about a Bath Bristol strategic study, and I'd love to hear more about that. And specifically, I'm very interested to know whether it includes anything about Saltford Station and another station.
Or Corsham.
Yes, would really help us, would be Corsham. But aside from that, very supportive of all the other improvements you're proposing for Wiltshire, because we recognise that will also help us with congestion in Bath, but want to get Corsham and Saltford on your radar.
Thank you. It does, in brief, it looks at new station opportunities. I'll make sure that there's a correct sort of rep, but I'm sure there is already. And I'm very happy to drop you a line with the sort of remit and any other information that's useful outside of this meeting, and indeed anybody else. We aimed to have all of the right local representation. If it feels like we've missed anyone, we're more than happy to open that up. I will confirm exactly who we've already got in our group, but yes, we are looking at new station opportunities.
Thank you very much. If there's no more for Matt and Jamie, thank you both very much. And that takes us on to National Highways And Zoe, you're attending today in lieu of Heather. 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon. I just wanted to say we are also very supportive of STBs and the work that you all do. Ben has provided a good update on the roads investment strategy, so I'll move on to our current scheme work. So we have the M48-7 bridge, which you know, or you may not, on May the 27th, we introduced a 7.5 tonne weight restriction for heavy goods vehicles. As part of our medium-term solution, we have been working closely with stakeholders looking at options to allow HGVs back onto the bridge. So what I'll do, with that, we're engaging with South Wales Trunk Road Agency, local highways authorities and several businesses and hauliers in the area on these potential options. We're following their feedback as well as considering traffic modelling and feasibility, and we'll confirm our preferred route option later in autumn ahead of implementation by October 2026. We've got the latest press release on that, which I can pop into the chat. With regards to the A417 missing link, work continues to progress well. We're currently in our offline construction phase of the scheme. The earthworks that we carried out in 2024 have allowed us to lay the foundations of the new bridges, and we've also started piling works at numerous areas. Last week, we started lifting 53 20-tonne pre-stressed concrete beams into place that carry 9 lanes of traffic over the Shab Valley Junction. And we've also started on the Cowley Junction, where we're building a new section of the A417. This is why we've introduced the Cowley roundabout contraflow system that will be in place until 2027. Unfortunately, we did, due to weather, have to postpone our full closure. That was the 12th. That was going to be the 12th to the 15th. So that will have to be worked out. We do have our project customer hub. It's open every Tuesday and Wednesday between 10 and 2. You can speak to members of the team and they will happily tell you about the work and answer any questions. We've also got the A303 Sparkford to Ilchester. That's fantastic. We're in the last elements of landscaping and we're on track to be completed by Christmas. The A432 Badminton Road Bridge. The piling works were completed early summer. The last full weekend closure of the M4 for this project to lift the steel beams into place is planned for the 10th to the 13th of October. We're currently on programme and plan to have the new bridge open to the public early 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Questions to National Highways? Can I, Phil?
Sorry, yeah, just one, from a West.
This is wetter for you, Zoe.
From a West Midlands perspective, the other one to add to the list is the Eastford Viaduct maintenance works, which is, you know, a substantial intervention over several years. And it's just to keep on the radar the concerns of Bristol and South Gloucester councils and the mayor around how the disruption is managed and what opportunities there are to mitigate. Not so much the flyover, because I understand that the works will maintain 2 lanes in each direction over there, but the progressive closures of the slip roads at Junction 2, off and on in both directions. I'm IKEA right next door, just highlighted, quite significant, and how the impact on the local highway network is going to be managed, what opportunities there are to mitigate that. Sorry, charges.
Fine. Zoe, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And can we pass back thanks? At previous meetings, we've had real concerns about the approach of National Highways in relation to our new housing targets. And I think we've seen a more responsive approach, and I think it's helping all of us to come to terms with the scale of growth that we have to cope with. So can we pass back a thank you?
Yes, thank you very much. Absolutely.
Is there any other questions for Zoe? If not, thank you, Zoe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That I think takes us to what on the agenda is called AOB, but is in practice the place that we're just going to talk about the future for a little while, and the changing framework of the devolution landscape and ways for us to collaborate regionally as an STB. I don't know, Alan, would you like to introduce this briefly? Or James?
Yeah, I can. Well, James, you
probably Alan.
we can do it together, Chris. It's a changing time for us, isn't it? So there's been correspondence from the department, one from, well, both from Conrad Bailey actually, one from him particularly, and one from his colleague, which slowly introduces the prospect of change for STBs across the country, and I sort of say that slightly cautiously because it's different for all of us. Certainly different for Transport for the North. They've got quite a, well, almost a universal coverage of mayoral authorities up there, as opposed to as you come further south, very few, and in the southwest, other than the WECA Combined Authority, none, and probably none for some time to come. I think, without sort of dwelling on the chat, Chris, the issue really is we've got some time to decide what we want to do. I think Ben earlier on and other speakers gave a fairly clear indication that at a regional level, the work that the STB does is extremely valuable, and for the time being, not much in the way of replacement, excepting, of course, as I say, the West of England Combined Authority, which is already in place. So ourselves and Peninsular Transport have vast areas of our geography which doesn't have that wider geography, doesn't have that ability to be able to do things at scale on behalf of all of our authorities. And it would be easy to simply say, well, you know, that's the end of that, then let's go off and do something else. But you only need to think about that for a few minutes and realise that that would be a huge mistake, I think. And our intention, obviously, it will be the board's decision ultimately to decide which option to pursue. But what we'd like to do with the help of boards, it may be something that we suggest a working group is the way to do that. By December is the sort of key time. By December, the department are asking us to put together our proposition for the short, medium and longer term, a sort of funding ask also on the short, medium and longer term. But, you know, I think the basic principle is I think we would advocate that we find a way of carrying on doing it. It may look different, it may feel different. It certainly won't have the money from the Department for Transport for supporting it, but it's not the only funding arrangement in town, and there are other things for us to explore. So I think I'd like to go into it optimistically, Chris, and say we think there is value. The conversations like today are very useful because clearly others think that there's value. So on that basis, we'd like to find another way of doing what we already do, maybe a bit leaner, maybe rather different in terms of the work that we do. But yeah, go into it optimistically, and we'll be sharing our thoughts with you in the not too distant future. James, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think you covered it all.
Alan, thank you very much. I mean, I'm a great believer in the principle that he who pays the piper calls the tune. And if we're moving towards a model where we have to do more of the funding, then it gives us a really big chance to shape the STB into what's going to be useful to all of us going forwards. I know I've got Hannah wanting to speak and I've got Martin wanting to speak, and then I think Ed's got a proposal for us.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think we need to be very conscious of the the framework of the sort of fairer funding view. And I'm sure other authorities have been projecting what might be the likely outcome for them in that process. And it would be interesting, I think, to understand within our region what that might turn up for which of us might have more and which of us might have less money, because I think the pressures of trying to fund it ourselves could be quite challenging. And I'm sure we're all having the same conversations about budgets and gaps and deficits and so on. So I think that is a real challenge which we need to reference and think about, because we all want this to, I think we all want this to take a leading role going forward. And the secondly, I was just conscious that having had sight of the letter that came, it referenced that, of course, STBs have STPs, strategic transport plans now, and we were really pleased to launch ours last year. But we launched that having developed it under a previous government, looking at what was happening with the change of government before a national integrated transport strategy has been released, in the context of then having to look at changing all of our local plans, which for many of us were almost at point of going to completion. And that has had a huge impact on our thinking about, and we've talked about it earlier today, haven't we, with that tool, our thinking of actually what does our region look like and what are the transport needs going to be in the future. And so to think that that's done and dusted is not, is it? And I think we do need some sort of forum going forward to be able, we had planned to review that. We planned to review our SIP, which was the first strategic investment plan that we had produced, in order to make sure that we got the right strategic view of the schemes that we absolutely needed to press for in the Southwest. So I think we definitely need to think about how can we keep that dialogue going and have it supported by the work that's been done to be able to do that. And I also think that it's really important that we continue to connect with Peninsula, whether that still exists as Peninsula as a strategic transport board or something else, or whether we have a different sort of forum, but being, I think it was referenced in public participation, that we're a region. We absolutely need to look at connectivity across the region, and I think there's been some real value. It's been really good having a close working relationship with Peninsula, which I know has been really strongly fostered by the office particularly, and I'd want to see that kind of increased and strengthened rather than dissipated at this point in time.
So I think that, Ben, I don't know if you will have been able to listen to that in full, but there's one particular message out of that I hope we will take back, which is that one of, because everybody's SIPs were done before the new government, before the economic growth plans, and before the new housing targets, every STB has a need to be reviewing their SIP in the light of that totally changed landscape. And it seems unfortunate that there's a timing issue about how you deliver the change whilst enabling that review to happen. And we're not going to be alone in that, in saying that the timing for change is significant and we need the time to get the new SIP in place. Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, as Alan has already alluded to, we've got a changing landscape in terms of local authority organisation. Wiltshire's been told quite categorically that we're not anytime soon going to become part of a combined mayoral authority, even though we've sort of, done high-level agreements with our neighbours. That's not within our gift. So I really see that Western Gateway is providing some form of continuity with these conversations, these regional conversations through transport. Because it could be some years before we're in a different sort of grouping, and even once we are in a combined mayoral authority. I mean, the example here of Wecker talking to all us shows that these authorities aren't going to be big enough in terms of area anyway. The area that we're looking at is a much wider area than any authority in the future is going to be. So we need to have these conversations across border, and if it's not this, we're going to have to invent something else.
Ed, you've got your hand up.
Well, pretty much everything I was going to say, you've kind of stolen my thunder, but I'll say it very quickly and mindful of time that I think it's a really good, I mean, it's a pity that we are where we are with all the changes, but it is a good, really good time and a good opportunity to reflect on the impact we've had to date. And I think we need to ask officers to prepare us an options appraisal for how we go forward. From my point of view, I think the rail, coaches and freight have all been really successful. And I think the shared prioritisation more than anything else, both on the MRN, as we've been discussing today, but also on the kind of strategic priorities has been a real positive. And I would think that actually central government would welcome this kind of collaboration so that we've already done a lot of the filtering and the thinking and the collaboration ourselves already. I also think the liaison with the peninsula has been really, really useful. So it seems to me it's an opportunity to be clearer maybe about our purpose, our impact to date, and to have a look at if we could pare it back and maybe a bit leaner, as I think the word Alan used, to a smaller but hopefully more or less equally impactful remit building on our successes to date. I think we really need to maintain that momentum that we've had and that continuity, and particularly a smooth transition in light of the Devo bill and what I've just heard today is a very uneven application of that bill. And I think I think everyone's already read this point, but I'll say anyway, that our plans and priorities need to be updated in light of the local plans, the revised housing targets, the new local growth plans. I think we'd really appreciate DFT giving officers some guidance, maybe offline through conversations as to how that might be framed, and how we might sort of continue to collaborate with the DFT to really look forward over sort of 2 or 3 years, because we're in real danger of just looking at a 1-year horizon. So just to summarise, really, I think we need officers to prepare us an options appraisal for how we go forward. And I, for one, would certainly be willing to come back, maybe informally, to check in before December with that. So I'll leave that on the table for people to discuss.
So the proposal would be that we send the officers away to talk with DFT, but also to talk with National Highways and with Network Rail, because Matt was very clear that they would like to be part of those conversations, to talk with Peninsula, to bring some proposals together, and then maybe would we all be willing to have an informal workshop end of October, early November-ish? Yep. Hannah.
I know Alan wants to come in, but just while we've got Ben with us, I want to take the opportunity. I've only been on this board for a little while, a couple of years, I suppose it is now. But officers tell me that one of the first purposes of STBs was to prioritise major schemes so that the DFT didn't get lots of different requests from different authorities. So I'm just wondering whether there's any thinking from DFT perspective, because obviously the letter was quite broad, about whether you saw the potential for yourselves to be again back in that position where individual authorities are doing a lot of direct conversations with DFT about specific schemes, which clearly we've spent a long time going through the SIP process and looking at how we would assess different schemes. Is that something that you, from the DFT perspective, see as an important role for whatever the collaborative body is going forward, or is that something DFT would envisage taking back, for example?
I think that's a really, really good question. I mean, it's probably a little bit too early to sort of give a steer on that one, but I think it's something that when you put your plans together, I would absolutely encourage you to sort of describe the benefits that have taken place as a result of that collective working. And if it's kind of your desire to actually continue that, which it absolutely is by the sounds of it, then I would certainly encourage you to put that within the sort of proposals that you put forward, and we certainly discuss that in more detail. I'll certainly feed that back going forward, because obviously we've got the integrated national transport strategy coming up, and that's all about integration and collaboration and working together and that. So we do need to align things with that as well, so difficult ones to sort of answer directly there at the moment, but I think it's important to have that as a very key component of what you put forward, and it's certainly something that I'll feed back to our policy leads this end, in terms of the the benefits that you found from that going previously.
Thank you very much. Subject to nobody else wanting to speak, Alan, can you wrap this one up? So you want to say and wrap it up, and then we can include our business.
No, it's
It's fine, Chris. Well, it'll wait for the next round. Keep going.
Are you comfortable, Alan, with where we've got to?
Yep.
Is everybody happy with that way forward? If so, is there anything else we need to talk about today? Having been a rubbish chair and this has run 5 minutes late. Anything else? Right, thank you all very much indeed. Mina.
Just wanted to say thank you to Winchester Council obviously for hosting us, for the venue and everything. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody else.
Thank you very much. And thank you for everybody joining us online. Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, won't come in.